good morning, ladies and gentlemen. When Karin asked me to share with you my thoughts on Ernest Holmes and the Science of Mind, I was really resistant. Because I said, Karin, I'm an industrialist. I was an automotive executive. Automotive executives face a difficult problem and have to come up with a simple solution for the benefit of most people. And those people were our customers and our associates. So I said, thanks for inviting me, but I'm just not the right person. I said, besides that, I'm not really a public speaker. Well, Karin did something kind of sneaky at the gym. She went to Christy, my wife of 54 years. And so, frankly speaking, what was I to say? I'd be happy to. Then, after I agreed, and I said, all right, I'll come, Karin said, can you do it in 20 minutes? And I thought, oh my gosh, talk about a difficult challenge that's going to have a simple solution. So I said, all right, but that's a little surprising. So guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We're going to have a fast ride this morning, so buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. So I was from the auto industry, and simplicity is a really powerful force. So let me give you an example of that. A car, an automobile, is about 20,000 parts, some of them more than that goes down an assembly line for about 24 hours before it finally is produced. And by the way, in between is 2,000 to 3,000 people. And what I noticed is that as I went around the world, believe it or not, about the second product that would be produced in an evolving economy was a car. And you think about that, how is that possible? This is not simple, this is very complex. And the reason is simplicity. So what do? We've got 20,000 parts, we've got 2,000 to 3,000 people, it's gonna take 24 hours to build, and then if we're really good at it, every minute we build a car. Well, how do we do it? Well, they actually break the processes down to only 1 to 2 minute increments. All we have to do anywhere in the world is train you on 1 to 2 minutes of the building process. Maybe all you'll do is install the windshield or put the seats in, and that's it. So through simplicity, we can take a very complex issue and actually build it anywhere in the world. And then I came to the great revelation that Ernest Holmes didn't build cars. So maybe that wasn't a good example. And guess what? I didn't build cars either. I was on the sales and marketing side. That's the people side. And as Catherine said, I would bring executives actually out to Joshua Tree to coach them on the sales and marketing side. And invariably, can you imagine I'd bring a group of executives from China, and they're from one of their small cities of 30 million people. And they're in Joshua Tree, California. The first thing they say to me is, Bob, we like you and we know you, but what am I going to learn in Joshua Tree, California? You know, we come from a city of 30 million people, and you sure don't have that in Joshua Tree in the middle of nowhere. And I would remind them, I'd start a process, and I'd say, well, really, cars are sold one person at a time. Maybe we don't need 30 million examples. Maybe in Joshua Tree there's enough examples right there. And also to calm them down, I would remind them that everywhere in the world, the car is the car. We don't build cars specific for different markets, it'd be too expensive. So the car's the car, and guess what? Everywhere in the world, the customer is the customer. I mean, let's face it, people are people. The difference though is culture. So I would use that as a bridge, culture, to calm them down. And I would say, tell me something about your culture, and then I'll tell you something about mine. And so if they were from the Eastern culture, and executives tend to think from 30,000 feet, so I was never really surprised by their answer, they would say, Bob, if you think about my culture, you have to think about rice paddies. We're the planters. Eastern people are the planters. And the planters work very well in large groups. Think about the whole village to plant the product and the whole village to harvest the product. and we're long-term thinkers. So the great strength of the Eastern culture is that they're long-term thinkers. Why? Hey, you plant something, you're not going to harvest it for a long time. As a matter of fact, if you plant a fruit tree, it could be years. So culturally, they're wired to long-term thinking. So I appreciated that, and I'd say, okay, now my culture. Look at me. I'm Western culture. We don't have rice paddies. So you have to think of the Ice Age in Europe. We're the hunters. We are all the hunters. Culturally, deep down, we're the hunter. And so how is the hunter different? Well, the hunter works very well as an individual and very well in small groups. And our thinking, where the Eastern is long-term, our thinking is actually analytical. Western people think analytically. I mean, think about it as the hunter. The hunter must think in terms of kind of horizontal and vertical. We'll call that a scope. If you're a hunter, you better think horizontal and vertical, and if you do, you'll be very successful, and if you don't, you're going to miss your target. So that's culturally how we're wired. And let me show you how that works in the business world, because that simplicity of horizontal and vertical has tremendous power. And so I would talk to him about marketing, because that's really what I was involved in. And Ernest Holmes was about people, and so marketing is about people. So what would I share with them about marketing? Well, I would say marketing, and I would quiz them on what do you know about marketing and creating brand, and they had all kinds of great ideas. But I'd say actually you got to think like the hunter. You want to create a great brand? It's product plus experience. It's no more than that. That's it. It's product plus experience. If you try to do anything else, you're just spinning your wheels. It's not the logo, it's not the advertising, it's not the nifty slogan, it's not the product positioning, it's the product and it's the customer experience. And I would share with him Lexus in the United States. We created Lexus out of the ether in the 1980s. And how did we do that? Product and experience. We had a difficult challenge. Cars from Japan, or any product from Japan, was never known as luxury, and we were trying to create a luxury brand. It was known as quality, durability, reliability, but not luxury. Products from Europe automatically have a cachet of luxury. Rolex watch, Ritz-Carlton. Products from America, Cadillacs, Pebble Beach, but we didn't have that. So we needed to focus on product plus experience, and we simplified that because I know you're wondering, how does that relate to Ernest Holmes? What we did was we made a brand promise to the customer on the product. We said we will have a relentless pursuit of perfection, and the customers loved that idea, and we had to live it. What was the experience going to be? Wow, in an auto dealership, I work for the brand, but I talk to auto dealerships. In an auto dealership, you have 100 people or 150, and you have everybody from landscapers and janitors all the way up to the general manager and the president and everybody in between. So how are we going to create a great experience? And we came up with the Lexus Covenant. It was about 80 words long, and you didn't have to memorize the 80 words. All you had to remember was we will treat each customer as we would a guest in our own home. And that answered everything. The philosophy, similar to an Ernest Holmes. The philosophy was really the entire process. Treat each person as you would a guest in your own home. Now, the janitor and the gardener, when you visit their home, they provide a quote-unquote luxury experience based on their socioeconomic level. That was fine. And the president of the company understood what a luxury experience was, and I'll give you a real brief example of that. Gee, if somebody comes to your house and they knock on the door, you answer it, and you welcome them. Okay, so I didn't have to write a process for that, just welcome them. If the phone rings, don't let it ring 20 times, just answer it like you would a guest in your own home. And now the secret sauce for how to create Lexus, the real secret sauce. If a guest is at your home and their car breaks down, what do you say? You don't say, ooh, it's cold outside. And in the 1980s, we didn't have Uber. So you don't say, wow, that's going to be a long walk home. That's But the auto industry did say that up to that point in 1980s. What we said was, we're going to loan you a car. And that car's going to be an LS400. We're going to really have an elevated experience for you. Or if we don't loan your car, we're going to drive you home or to your work. And the customers loved it. They said, wow, the product was the relentless pursuit of perfection, and the experience was unbelievable. And we created a luxury brand out of thin air. Okay. So how does that relate to Ernest Holmes and the science of mind? Well, when Corinne asked me, what did you think? Bad thing about asking me what I think is I'll actually tell you. So I said, okay, Corinne, here's what I thought. It was too complex. She said, what? I said, well, it was too complex. It has meditations, affirmations, and it has definitions. And I said, that's kind of like building the car. Maybe we need to think more like the brand and more like the hunter that we all are. Maybe just 2 points is all we need. It's all we need for all of us to firmly and completely implement the thoughts of the science of mind. So I thought it should be simple. Simplicity is a powerful force. And so Corinne said, well, okay, all right, well, what would the 2 points be? And I said, well, if you've read The Science of Mind, powerful force all the way through it is the power of mind over matter. That is. But both for personal healing and emotional healing, that's a strong, important part of Ernest Holmes. So I said, the first pillar should be an understanding the power of mind over matter. That's what it is. And each of us, or most of us, have an experience along that line, and I'll share with you one of mine. When my mother was about my age, mid-70s, she got a big lump on her throat. It was unfortunate. You can imagine what it was. It was cancer in the lymph node, and that's a secondary. Uh-oh. That means it had already spread. And so she went to a lot of specialists, and she followed all of the guidelines for treatments. But they told her, you know, you're in your mid-70s. You have secondary cancer. You got about a year. Maybe a little more, maybe. You know, be an optimist. But my mother had a strong will. And she said, you know what? She told me, she said, I'm not going to be robbed of my golden years. This illness is not going to do it. I am in this for the long haul. And to make that long story a little bit short, when she was eventually in hospice, eventually that happens, she was no longer in her mid-70s. She was 90. Oh. 90 years old. And so I asked her, I said, how did you do it? I watched her through this whole process, and frankly speaking, in the early years, the cure was almost worse than the illness in many ways. It was pretty tough. And she did the surgery, and she did the radiation and the chemo. So I asked her, she's in hospice on her bed, and I said, Mom, how'd you do it? She said, you know, Bob, here's what I did. In the early part of it, years ago, if I just had a good month, just a good month, I didn't worry about the other months. If I had a good month, that's all I needed. That kept me going. It's the power of mind over matter. And she said, but then as time went on, it got a little bit more difficult, and that was okay. She said that was perfectly okay. If I just had a good week, wow, if I had a good week. Now remember, she's in hospice in the bed. And she said, unfortunately, it even got down to if I had a good day, and now all I need is a good moment. Just a good moment. So that was her strength of using the power of mind over matter. And that took her from the mid-70s, and my mother was not robbed of her golden years. She lived to be 90 years old. Okay, so that's one pillar. That's an important one. What would the second one be? Thinking like the hunter. What would the second one You know, every culture, philosophy, and religion, every one of them has an important common thread. And it's, why don't you just treat people the way you wish they would treat you? In the 1500s, the phrase the golden rule was coined, but really only until the 1500s. And actually, as far back as we have in written words, let's say, and actually it is the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians had basically the golden rule. They didn't call it the golden rule, but treat people the way you wish they would treat you. Imagine if we all did that. And actually, that was about 4,000 years ago. About 3,000 years ago, Judaism had the same thing. They had a slightly different twist on it. Instead of doing to others as you would have them do unto you, they said, don't do to people what you wouldn't want to have done to you. And that's okay, it's the same thing. And then about 2,500 years ago, Confucianism had the same thing. It was almost, if you read it, it's almost identical to the Judaism. And then, as we all know, about 2,000 years ago, Christianity used it. And it said, let's see, the Bible said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay, so to make it simple, what if we all remembered the power of mind over matter? And what if we all remembered, why don't we just treat people like the golden rule? I mean, certainly for each of us as individuals, our own orbit, be it large or small, that is your friends, family, and strangers you bump into on a daily basis, it'd be a good experience. And maybe that would spread to the community. And who knows from there? So if we all thought about the science of mind in like the Western hunter, and we thought in terms of, wow, the power of mind over matter. My mother understood that. The great strength of that to solve both emotional and physical problems. And then if we just treated people like the golden rule, wow, we would have a better world. Now, Karen told me something else, and that was, I think I mentioned it earlier, I get 20 minutes. And my 20 minutes is over.
No.
Almost over.
No.
And so I wanted to share with you my favorite verse. And I'm not going to read it, I'm going to paraphrase it if that's okay. And so the way the verse goes, it happens to be in the daily meditations, in the copy of Science of Mind that I have, and it's under the subtitle of freedom, and I love freedom, and it says, I keep the promise. Keep the promise. And in that, while it's short, Ernest Holmes also saw the power, like the Western person of the hunter, the power of 2 data points. And so what does he say on that one? He says, I keep the promise. It's very personal, it's just to you. So this was to me, it spoke to me. And it said, I keep the promise that I'll only speak positively to myself. I'll only think positively. But Ernest Holmes also reminds us that's not enough. That's 1 data point. And if you're the hunter and you only have 1 data point, you might shoot yourself in the foot. You need the other data point, right? Keep you on target. And the other data point that Ernest Holmes shares in I Keep the Promise is I will speak positively to myself, but I will celebrate the good things that happen. And it may be like my mother, just a good moment, but I will celebrate that. And maybe from those good moments will come a good hour, a good week, a good month, and maybe a good life. So I really like that one. Now, some people could criticize me and say, well, wait a minute, Bob. Of all of Ernest Holmes, you picked the one that's just you? That's kind of selfish. And I would share with you that I used to be, for a while, I was search and rescue in the park. And when we'd get ready to go out into the wilderness to rescue somebody, the leader of the group, whoever it was, would invariably line us up and say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself first. Because the last thing we need is to have to rescue 2 people. So maybe it isn't selfish. If each one of us took care of ourselves, maybe there'd be no need for any rescues, right? We would be self-healing. And the last thing I'll end on, if I have just another minute, my two kind of personal affirmations, the two of them. Life is good is how I started, and I didn't coin that phrase, but I somehow internalized it, and I do believe that life is good. My gosh, I was in Lawton, Oklahoma as a dishwasher, and I became an auto executive. Life must be pretty good. But then as I got older, I realized I needed to add another element to that. And that element was today is the best day of the rest of your life. Now, an optimist might say, and tomorrow will be better, but if you're 74, there may or may not be a tomorrow. We should really rejoice and celebrate today. So that became my affirmation, that today is the best day of the rest of your life. And I wanted to close with first a challenge. And the challenge to each of you is as you leave here and go forth, enjoy each of those wonderful moments. There will be plenty. And then I wanted to thank you. You know, it's been said that the wealth of a person is not really the money they have or the things that they acquire. The wealth of a person are the people that you meet and the experiences that you share together. So I want to thank each of you and the Spiritual Living Center. I want to thank each of you for greatly enriching my life today. So thank you very much.